As the cool morning mist settled over the lake, the stillness of the water mirrored the quiet tension in the air. Logan Pierce, a successful billionaire entrepreneur, walked along the shoreline, enjoying the solitude. His thoughts were far from the world of business and money that usually consumed him. He took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp autumn air as he walked, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his coat. Just then, he heard a soft, almost imperceptible voice call out, "Please, help!" Logan froze. The voice was faint, barely cutting through the wind. He turned around, searching for the source of the sound. Through the fog, a small figure appeared, standing at the edge of the lake. It was a young girl, no older than 10, her clothes ragged and torn, her hair unkempt. Her eyes were wide with fear, and she seemed to be struggling to stay upright. Without thinking, Logan sprinted toward her, his heart pounding in his chest. The closer he got, the clearer he could see the desperation in her face. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. The girl didn't answer immediately. She simply stared at him, her small body trembling. Logan's mind raced. Why was she here, alone, and in such a dangerous place? He crouched down in front of her, trying to make eye contact. "Hey, it's going to be okay," he reassured her, trying to calm her. She hesitated for a moment, then whispered, I was looking for my mom." Logan's chest tightened at the words. There was something about her, something familiar, but he couldn't place it. He glanced around, but the area was empty. He didn't know where to start looking for her mother. "Where did you last see her?" he asked softly, not wanting to push her too hard. The girl shook her head slowly. "I don't know. I think she's gone." The words hung in the air like a weight. Logan's mind raced. How could a child this young be left alone in a place like this? He extended his hand to her, offering his warmth. "Come on. Let's get you somewhere safe. We'll find your mom." She looked at his hand, then up at him, eyes wide with uncertainty. Without another word, she took his hand. The moment their fingers touched, Logan felt a strange jolt, as if something inside him had shifted. It wasn't just the act of helping this girl, it was something deeper, something he couldn't explain. He helped her to his car, the girl moving hesitantly, as though she wasn't used to being taken care of. As Logan drove, his mind kept wandering back to the girl. There was something about her that felt so familiar, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. But for now, he needed to focus on getting her help. As they arrived at his home, Logan glanced at her one last time. She had fallen silent, staring out the window. He couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was no coincidence, but he pushed the thought aside. The truth would come soon enough. The warmth of the car's interior contrasted with the chill of the morning air as Logan Pierce drove, his hands gripping the steering wheel, his eyes darting back and forth between the road and the young girl sitting quietly in the passenger seat. The silence between them was heavy, almost oppressive, as the girl stared out the window, her face partially hidden by a mess of unkempt hair. Logan tried to keep his focus on the road, but his thoughts kept drifting back to her. Who was she? Where was her mother? Why had she been alone by the lake? The questions circled in his mind, unanswered, as the minutes ticked by. Finally, he spoke, his voice low, careful. "Do you remember your mom's name?" The girl didn't answer at first, her eyes still locked on the passing scenery. Logan sighed, turning down the street toward his estate. It was a beautiful place, full of polished marble floors, towering columns, and gardens that seemed to stretch on forever, but today, it felt like an empty shell. It wasn't the wealth or the power that mattered now, it was this little girl, and the mystery surrounding her. He glanced over at her again, her face expressionless, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. "What's your name?" Logan asked gently. The girl hesitated, her fingers nervously twirling the hem of her sleeve. "Anna," she finally whispered. "Anna?" Logan repeated, his eyebrows knitting together. There was something about the name that struck him, but he couldn't place it. "That's a beautiful name," he said softly. Anna nodded but didn't speak further. They arrived at his estate shortly after, and Logan led Anna into the grand foyer. His home, usually a symbol of his success and achievements, felt more like a cold, sterile space today. He needed answers. Anna needed answers. He looked down at her as they stood together in the hallway, unsure of what to do next. "Are you hungry?" he asked, trying to break the silence. Anna nodded, her small face looking even more vulnerable in the quiet of his home. He led her into the kitchen, where the smell of fresh coffee and baked goods filled the air. The kitchen staff had already prepared breakfast, but today, Logan didn't feel like eating. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to one of the chairs at the large table. Anna sat obediently, her eyes still wide and searching. Logan took a seat across from her, his thoughts racing. "What happened, Anna? Why were you out there alone by the lake?" The question came out more urgently than he had intended, but he couldn't help it. He needed to know. Anna looked at him, her expression blank for a moment, before she spoke in a soft voice. "I was looking for my mom. She's not here anymore." Logan's heart clenched at the words. He could see the pain in her eyes, the kind of pain that no child should ever have to carry. "What do you mean? Where is she?" he asked, leaning forward, his concern deepening. Anna shook her head slowly, tears welling up in her eyes. "She disappeared a long time ago. I thought I could find her, but I couldn't." Her voice faltered, and she quickly wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Logan's heart sank as he listened to her. There was no denying the sadness in her voice, but there was also something else, a quiet strength. He wasn't sure what had happened to her, but he knew one thing for certain: Anna needed help. "You don't have to look for her anymore," Logan said softly, his voice steady but filled with compassion. "You're not alone now. I'll help you." He reached out, placing a hand on her small shoulder. Anna stiffened slightly at the touch, but didn't pull away. She simply nodded, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Logan wasn't sure what to do next. He had no idea how to navigate the storm of emotions running through him, but he knew he couldn't let this child slip through his fingers. She was here for a reason. And whether it was fate or coincidence, he wasn't going to ignore it. "Anna," he began, his voice soft but firm, "I'm going to find out what happened to your mom. And until we do, you're safe here." Anna looked up at him, her eyes searching his face for sincerity. He gave her a small, reassuring smile. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded, her lips curling into a faint, tentative smile. Logan sat back in his chair, watching her, trying to make sense of it all. The world outside his mansion seemed so distant, so removed from the uncertainty and fear that Anna carried with her. But here, in this room, they had a chance to start over, to find some measure of peace. And Logan would do whatever it took to give her that. As the morning sun filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows on the polished floors, Logan made a silent vow to himself: he would protect Anna, and he would help her uncover the truth, no matter how complicated or painful it might be. The days that followed were filled with a strange mix of hope and uncertainty. Logan Pierce tried to go about his usual routine, but his mind kept returning to Anna. She was always there in the back of his thoughts, sitting quietly at the kitchen table, staring out of the windows, her small hands clasped tightly in her lap as if waiting for something, or someone, to show up. Logan had done everything he could to make her feel comfortable in his home. He had arranged for a room to be prepared for her, with soft blankets, a few toys, and a small lamp that cast a warm glow. It was all so different from the life she must have known. He had tried to reassure her, told her that she was safe now, but he still didn't have answers. Every day, he asked her more questions, but she never revealed much. She always looked down, her eyes avoiding his, as if she were afraid to talk about her past. Logan couldn't imagine the kind of pain and confusion a child like Anna must have gone through, but he was determined to help her. On the third morning after Anna arrived, Logan decided to take a different approach. He would try to find out more about her mother, and maybe, just maybe, uncover the truth of why Anna had ended up alone. He sat down beside her at breakfast, watching her eat in silence. "Anna," he began, his voice soft but steady, "I know you're scared. I can't imagine what you've been through, but I want to help you. I need you to trust me." Anna paused mid-bite, her eyes meeting his for the first time in days. There was something in her gaze, a flicker of hesitation, but also a trace of hope. She nodded slowly, as if weighing her options. After a long pause, she spoke. My mom, she used to work here. Logan's heart skipped a beat. The words seemed so casual, but they hit him like a thunderclap. She used to work here. Here, he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. In my house? Anna nodded again, her small hands clenched into fists on the table. She worked for you, a long time ago, Anna said softly, almost to herself. Logan's mind raced. Could it be? Could there be a connection between Anna and his past that he had forgotten? He had so many questions now, questions he hadn't thought to ask before. Do you remember her name? Logan asked gently. Anna looked up, her brow furrowed as she thought for a moment. Ruth, she said finally. Her name was Ruth. The name struck Logan like a bolt of lightning. Ruth. He had heard that name before, but it had been years, decades, maybe. Ruth had been a loyal housekeeper at his estate many years ago. She had left abruptly one day, without explanation, and Logan had never heard from her again. He had always assumed she had moved on, but hearing Anna's words now, it was as if a missing piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. Ruth, Logan repeated, his voice thick with emotion. Where did she go? Do you know what happened to her? Anna's eyes filled with tears. I don't know. I just know she promised she'd come back for me, but she never did. Logan felt a knot form in his stomach. He had no idea what had happened to Ruth, but now he knew that somehow, her fate was tied to Anna's. I'm going to find her, Logan said. Firmly, his voice full of resolve. And I'm going to make sure you're not alone anymore. I promise you that. Anna looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. You'll find her, she whispered. Logan nodded. I will. He stood up, walking over to the phone. He had a few contacts he could reach out to, people who might be able to help him uncover Ruth's whereabouts. But even as he dialed the number, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this story than he knew. What had happened to Ruth? And how was Anna connected to all of it? He didn't have all the answers yet, but he was determined to find them. As he hung up the phone, he turned back to Anna, who was still sitting at the table, her eyes fixed on him. I won't rest until I find your mom, Anna, Logan said, his voice full of conviction. And when I do, everything will change for both of us. Anna looked at him, her expression softening slightly. Thank you, she said quietly. Thank you for believing in me. Logan gave her a small smile, though his heart was heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. He had no idea what he would discover in the days to come, but one thing was clear, he wasn't going to let Anna face this alone. Together, they would uncover the truth, no matter where it led. The following days were filled with a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. Logan Pierce had made a promise to Anna that he would find her mother, Ruth, but the path ahead remained unclear. As he spent his days calling contacts, trying to track down any clue that might lead to Ruth, he kept his word to Anna by offering her comfort and stability in his home. Though the mansion was filled with luxury, Anna often seemed distant, lost in her thoughts. She rarely spoke about her past, and Logan didn't press her. Instead, they spent quiet hours together, him reading in the study while she worked on a drawing or played with the few toys Logan had brought for her. It was a routine that, although simple, created a sense of normalcy in the midst of the chaos. One afternoon, after returning from another fruitless attempt to track down Ruth, Logan sat down beside Anna. She was sitting at the large kitchen table, coloring in a small sketchbook, the crayon marks bright against the pale paper. He watched her for a moment, his heart heavy with the weight of the promise he had made to both her and himself. Anna, he said gently, his voice breaking the silence. She looked up from her drawing, her dark eyes meeting his with a quiet curiosity. How are you doing? He asked, his tone soft. She gave a small shrug, her hands fidgeting with the edges of the paper. I'm okay, she said, though her voice held a hint of something more, a quiet sadness that Logan had learned to recognize. Logan sat down beside her, his gaze fixed on the drawing she had been working on. It was a simple picture, a house with a tree in the yard and a small figure standing in the doorway. Is that your house? He asked, pointing to the drawing. Anna nodded slowly. It's the house I remember, she said, her voice soft. Before everything changed. Logan's heart ached as he looked at the picture. He could see in her eyes that this image of home was the only thing left of her past. He could only imagine the life she had left behind. Tell me about it, Logan encouraged, his voice warm and patient. Anna hesitated for a moment, then began. It was a small house. My mom, she was always there. We didn't have much, but we were happy. I used to play outside, under the tree. She'd make me sandwiches and we'd eat them in the yard. She paused, her eyes glancing down at the drawing as if the memory was too painful to hold onto for too long. Logan could feel the weight of her words. He couldn't fully understand the depth of what Anna had lost, but he knew she was trying to hold onto the good memories, to the small moments of happiness before everything had gone wrong. What happened, Anna? He asked softly. Why did your mom leave? Anna's small hands clenched around the edge of the sketchbook. I don't know, she whispered. She just disappeared. One day, she was gone. I waited for her to come back, but she never did. Logan felt a deep sense of sorrow wash over him as he listened to her story. How could a mother leave her child like that? And why had Ruth, a woman who had worked for him all those years ago, been connected to this little girl's fate? It didn't make sense. Logan took a deep breath, his mind working furiously as he tried to piece together the puzzle. I'm going to find out what happened to your mom, he said with conviction, his voice steady despite the growing storm of questions in his mind. I promise you, Anna. We will figure this out. Anna looked up at him, her eyes wide with both hope and fear. You will? She asked, her voice trembling. Logan nodded. Yes, I will. And I won't stop until I find the answers. They sat together in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation hanging in the air. Logan knew this was more than just a mission to help a little girl find her mother. It was about uncovering something deeper, something that had been buried for years. In the meantime, you're not alone, Logan added, his voice softening. You have me. And I'm going to take care of you. Anna's lips trembled as she smiled faintly, her eyes still filled with doubt but also a glimmer of trust. Thank you, she whispered. Logan reached out and placed a hand gently on her shoulder, feeling the warmth of her small frame. He had no idea where this journey would lead or what they would uncover, but he knew one thing, he would not rest until Anna had the answers she needed. He would protect her, no matter what it took. With that promise in his heart, Logan stood up and walked over to the phone, ready to make more calls, to dig deeper into the mystery that had begun to unfold. As he dialed the number, he couldn't help but think about the significance of Anna's words. Before everything changed. He wondered what had really happened to Ruth and how Anna was connected to it all. But he wasn't going to stop searching for the truth. Not now. Not ever. Logan Pierce's promise to Anna weighed heavily on him as the days stretched into weeks. He had made some progress with his contacts, but every lead seemed to hit a dead end. Ruth, the woman who had worked for him years ago, had vanished without a trace, and so had any trace of Anna's mother. Logan could see the toll this uncertainty was taking on Anna, who had grown quieter with each passing day. Despite the calm demeanor she tried to maintain, Logan knew that beneath the surface, she was carrying a heavy burden. One evening, after another frustrating phone call with no new information, Logan found himself standing at the window of his study, staring out at the city lights. The mansion was quiet, and the weight of responsibility pressed down on him. He had promised Anna that he would find her mother, and yet, with each day, the promise felt more distant, more impossible. He turned away from the window and walked down the long corridor to the room where Anna had been staying. The door was slightly ajar, and he could hear her soft voice singing to herself inside. Logan knocked gently, and Anna's voice immediately stopped. Come in, she said, her tone cautious, but not unkind. Logan stepped inside to find her sitting on the floor, surrounded by papers and crayons, her small hands moving quickly as she worked on another drawing. This one was different from the others. It wasn't just a house or a tree, it was a picture of a woman, smiling gently, with soft eyes and a look of warmth that reminded Logan of someone he couldn't quite place. What's this one, Anna? Logan asked, sitting down beside her. She looked at the drawing for a moment, then shrugged. It's just someone I remember, she said quietly. I don't really know her, but I feel like I should. Logan felt a pang in his chest. He hadn't seen Anna talk this openly in weeks. Who do you think she is? He asked softly, not wanting to push her too much but also wanting to know more. Anna hesitated for a moment before answering. I don't know, but I think she might be my mom. Logan's heart skipped a beat. The drawing, the description, it was as if Anna had been holding onto a memory she couldn't quite reach. He looked at her, searching her face for any signs of doubt or confusion. Anna, Logan said gently, is this someone you saw in your dreams? Or someone you remember from before? Anna shook her head slowly. I don't know. It's like I just know she's important. And I think she might be the one I've been looking for. Logan felt a mix of emotions, hope, confusion, and an overwhelming need to get to the bottom of this mystery. The drawing Anna had made seemed to hold a clue, a piece of the puzzle that might lead him to the answers he desperately needed. We'll figure this out, Anna, Logan said, his voice steady but filled with conviction. I'm going to do everything I can to find her. And when I do, we'll get you the answers you deserve. Anna looked at him, her eyes wide, searching for reassurance. Logan reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder, offering the comfort he knew she needed. I promise, he added, his voice full of sincerity. We won't stop until we find your mom. That night, Logan couldn't sleep. His mind raced with questions and possibilities. Could the woman in Anna's drawing really be her mother? Could this be the key to unlocking the mystery of Anna's past? He knew he had to find out. The next morning, he contacted his most trusted investigator, someone who had helped him in the past with delicate matters. He gave the investigator the sketch of the woman Anna had drawn, along with the name Ruth. He also told him about Anna's story and how the child seemed to have a memory of a mother she had never met. The investigator promised to start immediately and gather any information he could. Logan tried to focus on his work as he waited for the call, but every minute felt like an hour. He couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming, that the answers were just out of reach. As the sun began to set, Logan received the call he had been waiting for. The investigator had found something. He was able to track down an address connected to Ruth, and it was only a few hours away. Logan wasted no time. He immediately packed a bag, preparing for what could be a long journey ahead. Before he left, he went to Anna's room to tell her the news. She was sitting on the floor, surrounded by her drawings once again, but this time, there was a new look in her eyes, hope. I've got some news, Logan said, standing in the doorway. Anna looked up, her eyes full of curiosity. I think we've found something. We might be closer to finding your mom. Anna's eyes widened, and for the first time in days, she smiled. It was a small smile, but it was full of hope. Really? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Logan nodded. Yes. We've got an address. We're going to find her, Anna. I promise. Anna stood up, her hands still trembling, but she didn't say anything. She just nodded, as if she could feel the weight of what was coming. Logan held her gaze for a moment, then turned and left the room, knowing that this journey was about to change everything. They were close now. The truth was within reach. The drive to the address was filled with a tense silence. Logan Pierce could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he gripped the steering wheel, his mind racing with every possibility. The investigator had given him an address, one that could lead them to Ruth, the woman who had once worked for Logan, and who, according to Anna, might be connected to her mother's disappearance. Logan's eyes glanced over at Anna, who was sitting quietly in the passenger seat. Her small hands were clasped together in her lap, her eyes fixed ahead, but her expression was unreadable. After all this time, this moment felt like a turning point. He couldn't help but wonder what they would find when they arrived. Would this be the breakthrough they had been waiting for, or just another dead end? Anna, Logan said softly, trying to break the silence, are you okay? Anna turned to look at him, her dark eyes filled with a mixture of hope and anxiety. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Logan's heart ached. He had promised her that they would find her mother, but he knew that the truth, whatever it was, might not be easy to face. "I know," he replied, his voice gentle. "But you're not alone in this. We're in this together, okay?" Anna nodded, though she didn't speak. Logan reached over and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, giving it a soft squeeze. As the car continued down the winding road, Logan's mind drifted back to Ruth. What had happened to her all those years ago? Why had she left so abruptly? And why had she been connected to Anna? All of these questions weighed heavily on him, but he couldn't let them distract him now. They were getting closer. And he had to stay focused. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached their destination. The address led them to a modest, two-story house on the edge of town, surrounded by a small, overgrown garden. The house looked abandoned, with a few broken windows and a sagging porch. Logan parked the car and turned off the engine. The silence in the car was deafening as he looked at Anna. "This is it," he said quietly. Anna nodded, but there was no mistaking the uncertainty in her eyes. Logan stepped out of the car first, glancing around to make sure no one else was nearby. He walked toward the front door, his footsteps slow and deliberate. Anna followed behind him, her small form barely making a sound as she approached. When they reached the door, Logan knocked 3 times, the sound echoing through the quiet air. They waited in silence. For a moment, it seemed like no one would answer. But then, the door creaked open, revealing an older woman, her face lined with age and worry. Her hair was graying, and she wore a simple dress, but there was something familiar about her, something in the way she stood that made Logan's heart skip a beat. "Can I help you?" the woman asked, her voice cautious but kind. Logan took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "Are you Ruth?" he asked. The woman's eyes widened slightly, and for a brief moment, she seemed to hesitate. Then, her expression softened, and she nodded. "I am," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But, how do you know my name?" Logan's heart raced as he tried to gather his thoughts. "I'm Logan Pierce," he said, "and I think you might know someone very important to me." Ruth's eyes flickered with recognition, though she still seemed unsure of what to make of the situation. Logan continued, "This is Anna," he said, motioning toward the young girl standing silently behind him. "She's been looking for you." Ruth's gaze shifted to Anna, her expression unreadable. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Ruth stepped aside, gesturing for them to come in. "Please, come in," she said softly, her voice trembling. Logan exchanged a glance with Anna before they both stepped over the threshold and into the dimly lit house. The interior was just as worn and neglected as the exterior, with faded furniture and old, yellowed curtains. The air was thick with dust, and there was a musty smell that filled the room. Ruth led them into the small living room, where she gestured for them to sit. "I don't understand," Ruth began, her voice shaky. "Why is Anna here? What do you mean by looking for me?" Logan sat down across from her, trying to keep his voice calm. "Anna told us that you worked for me years ago," he said. "She said you were her mother's friend, and that you might know where she is." Ruth's face paled, and she seemed to shrink back, as if the weight of the past was too much to bear. Anna remained silent, her small body tense as she watched the woman in front of her. Logan could see the emotions battling inside Ruth, the fear, the guilt, the confusion. He had no idea what had happened between them all those years ago, but he was certain now that Ruth held the answers. "Please," Logan urged, "you have to tell us what happened. Anna deserves to know the truth." Ruth closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering the strength to speak. Then, she exhaled slowly, her voice trembling. "I didn't leave her," she said softly, looking at Anna with tears in her eyes. "I never meant to leave. But things happened, things I couldn't control. I couldn't protect her." Logan's heart sank as he listened to Ruth's words. The mystery was unraveling, but he knew there was still so much more to learn. And Anna, she needed to hear the truth, no matter how painful it was. The room was quiet, the only sound coming from Ruth's soft, uneven breathing as she sat across from Logan and Anna. Ruth's eyes were red, her hands shaking slightly in her lap. The air was thick with the weight of her words, the truth she had just revealed, but there was more to be said. Logan could feel the tension in the room, the heaviness of the past that had been suppressed for so long. He sat still, waiting for Ruth to find the courage to continue. Finally, after a long pause, Ruth looked up at Anna, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't leave you, Anna," she said, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to leave. But something happened, something I couldn't control. Your mother, she was in trouble, and I had to make a choice. I didn't think it would be like this. I thought I could fix things, but I couldn't." Anna's eyes were wide, her small hands gripping the edges of her chair, her breath shallow. Logan could see the confusion and fear on her face. This was the woman she had been searching for, the woman who might hold the key to her past. But what was the truth? What had really happened all those years ago? Ruth took a deep breath, her eyes now filled with tears as she struggled to explain. "Your mother and I, we were close. But she had her own demons, things she couldn't escape from. There were people after her, people who wanted to hurt her. And when she found out she was pregnant with you, she didn't know what to do. She was scared, Anna. So scared. And I promised her that I would protect you, that I would keep you safe." Ruth paused, wiping away a tear. "But when things got bad, I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep you both safe. I had to protect you, Anna. So I took you away, I hid you, and I promised your mother that I would keep you safe from the people who were after her. But I couldn't protect her. I didn't know what happened to her after that. And I couldn't tell you the truth. I couldn't tell you where she was, because I didn't know. And I thought if I could keep you hidden, if I could keep you safe, that maybe one day, everything would be okay." Anna's face was pale, her eyes wide with shock. She had been holding on to the hope that her mother was still out there, that somehow, she would find her and they would be together again. But now, the truth was like a weight she couldn't escape. "But why didn't you tell me?" Anna whispered, her voice trembling. Ruth's gaze softened, but the guilt was clear in her eyes. "I couldn't, Anna. I didn't want you to carry that burden. You were just a baby, and I thought it was better for you to have a life without knowing the truth. But now you deserve to know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for keeping this from you." Logan watched as Anna processed the information, her small body trembling with emotion. He could see the pain on her face, the mixture of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. This was the woman who had promised to protect her, the one who had been part of her past, but the truth felt like a betrayal. Logan reached over, placing a hand gently on Anna's shoulder, offering her the only comfort he could in that moment. "Anna," he said softly, his voice steady but filled with empathy, "I know this is hard to understand, but the truth is here now. You're not alone anymore. We're going to figure this out together." Anna looked up at him, her eyes filled with unshed tears. She nodded, her face a mixture of sadness and acceptance. "I just wanted to find her," Anna said quietly. "I wanted to know where she was. I thought she would come back for me." Ruth's eyes welled with tears again, and she reached out, her hand trembling as she touched Anna's. "I wanted to be the one to bring you the truth, Anna," Ruth said, her voice filled with regret. "But I failed you. I failed your mother. And I'm sorry." Anna didn't say anything, but Logan could feel the weight of her emotions. This was a moment of reckoning, a painful revelation that had shattered the illusion of safety she had built around herself. Ruth stood up slowly, her movements stiff as she wiped her eyes. "There's more to the story, Anna," she said, her voice shaking. "But I can't give you all the answers. There are people who still want to find you, people who are dangerous. I kept you hidden to protect you, and I'm sorry for not telling you sooner. But now, the past is catching up with us, and I need to help you." Logan's mind raced as he processed everything Ruth had said. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place, but there were still so many unanswered questions. Who were these people after Anna? And what had really happened to her mother? "Ruth," Logan said, his voice firm, "what do you mean by dangerous people? What's going on? What happened to Anna's mother?" Ruth looked at him, her face pale with fear. "I can't tell you everything," she said softly. But I can tell you this, you need to protect Anna. There are people who will stop at nothing to find her. And if they do, everything we've tried to protect her from will be lost. Logan felt a chill run down his spine as the weight of Ruth's words sank in. This wasn't just about a missing mother, it was about something far bigger, something much more dangerous. He turned to Anna, her small face full of uncertainty and fear, and he knew that he had to protect her, no matter what. The journey they had started was far from over, and the stakes were higher than ever. The room was silent after Ruth's revelation, the weight of her words hanging in the air like a thick fog. Anna's gaze was fixed on the floor, her fingers nervously twisting the fabric of her shirt, her mind processing the whirlwind of emotions that had been unleashed. Logan could see the confusion and pain in her eyes, and he knew that the truth, as painful as it was only the beginning of a much larger story. Ruth stood by the window, looking out into the distance, her face a mixture of fear and regret. Logan could see the burden she had been carrying all these years. She had tried to protect Anna, but at what cost? Ruth turned slowly, her voice breaking the stillness. "I thought I could protect her," she whispered. "But I was wrong. And now, you're all in danger." Logan's heart sank. He had been hoping for answers, but what Ruth had revealed only led to more questions. Who were these people that were after Anna? And what exactly had happened to Anna's mother? Ruth's face was pale, her hands shaking. She looked at Anna, her eyes full of sorrow. "There are people, Anna. Dangerous people. They've been looking for you for a long time, and they won't stop until they find you." Anna's eyes widened in fear. "Who are they?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ruth shook her head slowly, her eyes downcast. "I don't know everything, but I know they're connected to your mother's past. She was involved in something she shouldn't have been. And when she found out she was pregnant with you, she tried to escape, to keep you safe." Ruth took a deep breath, her gaze distant. But it was too late. They found her, and they would have found you too, if I hadn't taken you away. Logan's mind was racing. He could feel the tension in the room, the danger that seemed to be closing in on them. This wasn't just a story about a missing mother, it was about a dangerous past that was now coming back to haunt them all. He stood up, his eyes never leaving Ruth's. "What do you know about them, Ruth?" he asked, his voice steady but filled with urgency. Ruth shook her head again. "I don't know their names, but they're powerful. They have connections everywhere. They'll stop at nothing to find Anna and finish what they started with her mother." Logan's stomach churned as he realized the depth of the situation. He had promised Anna that he would protect her, but now it seemed like the danger was much bigger than he had imagined. He glanced at Anna, who was still sitting silently, her face pale and her hands shaking. He could see the fear in her eyes, and it tore him apart. "You're not alone," Logan said softly, his voice full of conviction. "We'll find a way to keep you safe, Anna. I won't let anything happen to you." Anna looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "But who are they?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Logan didn't have an answer. He didn't know who these people were, but he was determined to find out. He turned back to Ruth, his voice firm. "What do we do now?" Ruth met his gaze, her face filled with sadness. "You have to leave. It's the only way to keep Anna safe. You can't stay here. They'll come for you." Logan felt a knot tighten in his chest. He couldn't just run. He couldn't leave Anna behind. But he knew that Ruth was right. The danger was real, and if they stayed, they would be putting Anna's life in even greater peril. "We'll leave," Logan said, his voice resolute. "But we're not running away. We're going to fight this. We'll find the truth, and we'll make sure Anna is safe." Ruth looked at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "You don't understand, Logan. These people, they have resources. They'll find you no matter where you go." Logan took a step toward Ruth, his eyes burning with determination. "I don't care who they are. I'll protect Anna, no matter what it takes." Ruth sighed deeply, as if the weight of everything was too much to bear. She looked at Anna one last time, her expression softening. I'm so sorry, she said quietly. I should have done more to protect you. But now it's up to you. You have to stay hidden, stay safe. Trust Logan. Anna didn't say anything. She just looked at Ruth, her small face full of confusion and sadness. Ruth's eyes filled with tears as she turned to leave. Logan stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do next. The truth had come out, but the road ahead was still unclear. The past had caught up with them, and now they had to face the consequences. As the door closed behind Ruth, Logan walked over to Anna, kneeling down in front of her. We're not alone in this, he said softly, trying to reassure her. We'll find a way to protect you. And we'll find out what happened to your mother. I promise you. Anna looked up at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty, but also a glimmer of trust. You promise, she whispered. Logan nodded. Yes. I promise. The danger was far from over, but for the first time in weeks, Logan felt a sense of clarity. They had a plan, and he wasn't going to stop until Anna was safe and the truth was revealed. The road ahead would be difficult, but Logan was ready to fight. For Anna. For the truth. And for a future free from fear. The days that followed Ruth's departure were filled with a sense of urgency. Logan Pierce had made the decision to protect Anna, and now he had to act fast. Ruth's warning had struck a chord with him. The danger wasn't just a shadow lingering in the distance, it was real, and it was coming for them. Logan couldn't afford to waste any more time. Every move he made was calculated, but deep down, he knew they were racing against something much bigger than themselves. They needed to leave the mansion and find a safe place for Anna, but Logan also knew he couldn't let this go. The answers they sought about Anna's mother and the dangerous people who were after them had to be uncovered. They had to know the full truth. Logan paced through his study, his mind racing. Anna was in the next room, still processing everything Ruth had told them. She was quiet, distant, but Logan knew her well enough to see the confusion in her eyes. She had spent so long searching for her mother, and now that the truth was beginning to unravel, it was all too overwhelming for her. Logan stopped pacing, looking out the window at the sprawling estate. The world outside felt so far away, and yet, inside the mansion, everything was closing in. He needed help. He needed more information about these dangerous people who were after Anna. Ruth's cryptic warning wasn't enough. He had to find out who they were, what they wanted, and why they were so desperate to find Anna. His phone buzzed on the desk, breaking his train of thought. It was a message from the investigator. Logan opened it quickly, his heart pounding in his chest. The message was short but clear, I found something. Meet me at the usual place. Logan's pulse quickened. This was the break he had been waiting for. Without hesitation, he grabbed his coat and rushed to the door. He needed to meet with the investigator now. The meeting spot was an old, nondescript cafe on the edge of town, a place where Logan often met with trusted contacts. It wasn't much, but it was secure. He arrived quickly, his eyes scanning the area as he stepped out of the car. The cafe was quiet, the soft hum of conversation barely audible over the clinking of cups and the sound of the espresso machine. Logan walked in, immediately spotting the investigator sitting at a corner table. The investigator was a tall man with sharp features, wearing a simple dark jacket. His expression was serious as he looked up from his phone and met Logan's gaze. Logan walked over and sat down across from him, his mind racing with questions. What did you find? Logan asked, his voice steady but filled with urgency. The investigator leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. I found a connection. These people, whoever they are, they've been following Anna for years. They've had eyes on her, even when she was with Ruth. It seems they're part of something larger, something organized. Logan's brow furrowed. What kind of organization? Who are they? The investigator hesitated for a moment, looking over his shoulder as if to make sure no one was listening. I don't know yet, but I'm digging into their operations. They've been in the shadows for a long time. It's clear that they have a lot of resources, but their motives are still unclear. Logan's grip tightened on the edge of the table. This wasn't just some random group of people after Anna. This was something coordinated, something with far-reaching consequences. What's the next step? Logan asked, his voice low. The investigator took a deep breath. I need to dig deeper. I'll start with their financial records. These types of operations are always funded through money laundering, shell companies, or donations. It'll take time, but I'll find something. Logan nodded, his mind already working on a plan. Keep me updated. I'll do whatever it takes to protect Anna. The investigator stood up, tipping his hat. I'll be in touch. Stay safe. Logan watched as the investigator walked out of the cafe, disappearing into the shadows of the street. Logan took a moment to let the weight of the situation sink in. These people weren't just after Anna's mother, they were after Anna too. And they would stop at nothing to get her. Logan knew that this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be dangerous, but he couldn't back down now. Not when Anna was depending on him. Not when they were so close to the truth. As Logan walked back to his car, his mind was set. He had to protect Anna, but he also had to find out everything he could about these people before it was too late. He had promised her that he would never let her face this alone, and he would keep that promise no matter the cost. Logan's phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from Anna. He answered it immediately, trying to sound calm, but his heart was pounding in his chest. Hey, Anna. How are you doing? He asked. I'm scared, she said softly, her voice barely audible. Logan's heart broke at the sound of her fear. He could hear the tremble in her voice, and he knew that she was just as overwhelmed as he was. I know, Anna, Logan said gently. But we're in this together, okay? We'll get through this. You're not alone. There was a long pause before Anna spoke again. Do you think we'll ever find my mom? She asked, her voice so quiet it was almost a whisper. Logan took a deep breath. He wanted to tell her everything would be okay, that they would find her mother and make everything right. But the truth was, he didn't know. He didn't know how long this would take or what they would face along the way. But he knew one thing for sure, he would never stop trying. I promise you, Anna, he said, his voice firm but full of love. We'll find her. And we'll get through this. Together. The days following Logan's conversation with Anna were filled with a sense of urgency. The clock was ticking, and every moment felt like it was leading them closer to the danger Ruth had warned them about. Logan had made it clear to Anna that they would face whatever came their way together, but deep down, he knew that the stakes were higher than ever. The group of people hunting Anna, whoever they were, had the resources and the drive to find her. They weren't going to stop. And neither would Logan. Logan was pacing the living room of the mansion, his mind a whirlwind of strategies, possibilities, and questions. The investigator had given him a lead, but it felt like every step they took only uncovered more layers of confusion and mystery. He couldn't risk Anna's safety any longer. She had been through enough. Anna was sitting on the couch nearby, quietly staring out the window. Her silence worried Logan more than anything else. She hadn't spoken much since their last conversation, and he could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She was starting to doubt whether they would ever find her mother, whether she was truly safe, and whether the danger had already found them. Logan stopped pacing and approached Anna. He sat down beside her, his heart aching as he watched her gaze out into the distance. Anna, he said gently, his voice full of concern, I know this is hard. But we're closer than ever to finding the answers you've been searching for. I won't stop. I promise you. Anna turned her head slowly, meeting his eyes. For a moment, she said nothing, her expression unreadable. Then, softly, she spoke. I don't want to lose you, Logan. I don't want to lose anyone else. Logan's heart sank as he heard the fear in her voice. He couldn't imagine what it felt like. To be in her shoes, to have lived with so many unanswered questions and the constant fear of losing someone. He reached out, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. You're not going to lose me, Anna. I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. Anna's eyes glistened with unshed tears. But what if it's not enough, she whispered. Logan's chest tightened, and for a moment, he was at a loss for words. What could he say? He had made promises, but the situation was beyond anything he had prepared for. We'll make it enough, Logan said firmly, his voice full of conviction. I won't let anything happen to you. Anna didn't reply. She simply nodded, the weight of her emotions clear on her face. Logan took a deep breath, feeling the responsibility weigh heavy on his shoulders. He had to protect Anna, but he also had to find out the truth. He couldn't just sit back and let these unknown people close in on them. He needed to act. Just as Logan was about to speak again, his phone buzzed, breaking the silence. He picked it up quickly, recognizing the number. It was the investigator. Logan, the investigator's voice came through the phone. I've got something. Logan's heart raced as he listened intently. What did you find? He asked. We tracked down a name, the investigator replied. A man named Richard Matthews. He's linked to the group I've been looking into. He has connections to several businesses, and I believe he's one of the key players in this operation. Logan's mind immediately began to piece things together. Richard Matthews. He had never heard the name before, but if he was involved in whatever was going on, it meant they were getting closer to understanding the full scope of the situation. Where can I find him? Logan asked, his voice urgent. I'm tracking his movements now, the investigator said. I'll keep you posted. But be careful, Logan. These people don't play by the rules. I understand, Logan replied, his voice steady. We'll be ready. He hung up the phone, turning to Anna, who was still sitting on the couch, her face pale. That was the investigator, Logan said. We've got a lead. We might be able to find the answers soon. We're going to get through this, Anna. I promise. Anna's eyes lifted to meet his, the faintest glimmer of hope shining through her fear. Do you think we'll find her? My mom, she asked, her voice trembling. Logan hesitated for only a moment before replying, yes. I believe we will. And when we do, everything will change. Anna nodded, her small frame trembling slightly as she gathered her emotions. Logan stood up, looking at the clock on the wall. Time was slipping away, and he knew that every moment counted. We need to prepare. When the investigator calls again, we'll move quickly. As Logan walked toward the door, his mind racing with the next steps, he couldn't help but think about what Ruth had said, you need to protect Anna. He had promised to do just that, but what did that really mean? If these people were as dangerous as Ruth had claimed, could they truly be stopped? He had no answers yet, but one thing was certain, he was ready to face whatever came next. He would find the truth. And he would protect Anna. No matter what it took. The night was cold, and Logan Pierce sat in the dimly lit study, the weight of everything pressing on him. His promise to Anna, the truth about her mother, and the dark forces after them were all spinning in his mind. The call from the investigator had come just as Logan was about to give in to the exhaustion of a long day. We found Matthews, the investigator had said. He's at an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It's the place where everything connects. Logan hadn't wasted a second. He had made his decision immediately, they would go there, they would confront Matthews, and they would finally uncover the truth. But there was one issue, Anna. She had been through so much already, and the weight of the secret she had uncovered seemed too much for someone so young to bear. Logan turned his attention to her now, sitting in the living room, her small form wrapped in a thick blanket. She had been quiet for hours, her eyes distant, as if the fear of the unknown had finally caught up with her. He walked over to her, kneeling down so he was eye level with her. Anna, he said softly, his voice filled with compassion, I need you to stay strong. We're getting closer, and I'm going to make sure you're safe. But I can't do this without you. We need to face this together. Anna didn't meet his gaze at first, her eyes still fixed on something only she could see. After a long pause, she looked up at him. What if it's too dangerous, she whispered, her voice barely audible. What if we can't fix it? Logan's heart broke hearing the fear in her voice. He had tried to shield her from the worst of it, but the reality of their situation had finally hit her. "I won't let anything happen to you," Logan said firmly. "You've already been through so much, Anna. But we're close now. We can't turn back." Anna blinked, and Logan could see the conflict in her eyes. She was scared, but there was also a glimmer of resolve. "I want to find out what happened to my mom," she said quietly, her voice shaking but determined. "I want to know the truth." Logan nodded, proud of her bravery. "And we will. We're going to get through this. Together." As Logan stood up, he looked out the window, the night stretching before him. The warehouse was their next stop. Matthews was there, and the answers to everything they had been searching for lay within reach. He had no idea what they would face when they arrived, but he was ready. Anna needed closure. She needed to understand who had been behind her mother's disappearance and why they were being hunted. The investigator had said Matthews was their key, the link to everything. Logan had no intention of letting that slip away. "Let's go," Logan said, turning back to Anna. He grabbed his coat, ready to face whatever came next. The journey had led them here, and there was no turning back now. As they stepped out into the cold night, the uncertainty of the road ahead still weighed heavily on Logan. He had made promises to Anna, but the closer they got to the truth, the more dangerous things became. The stakes were rising, and the past was coming back to claim them. He wasn't sure what Matthews knew or what kind of people they would encounter when they reached the warehouse. But he knew one thing: he would protect Anna at all costs. They drove through the empty streets in silence, Anna sitting beside him, her small hands gripping the seat as the headlights cut through the darkness. Logan's mind kept drifting to the same question: what had really happened to Anna's mother? Was she alive? Was she still out there? And what role had Ruth played in all of this? He had thought Ruth's warnings were enough, but now he realized there was more at play than he had ever imagined. They arrived at the warehouse just before midnight, the building looming in the distance like a dark, foreboding shadow. Logan parked the car at a safe distance and turned off the engine. The air was thick with tension as they both stared at the old structure. There was no turning back. They had to confront whatever was waiting inside. "Stay close to me," Logan said to Anna, his voice calm but filled with urgency. He didn't want her out of his sight. He knew the danger was close. They stepped out of the car, and Logan led the way toward the entrance. Every sound seemed amplified in the stillness of the night. The crunch of gravel beneath their feet, the distant hum of the city, the rapid beating of his own heart. As they reached the door, Logan took a deep breath, steadying himself. He had no idea what they would find inside. But he knew one thing for sure: the truth was finally within reach. He pushed open the door, the rusty hinges groaning in protest. Inside, the air was damp and musty, the smell of decay hanging in the air. They moved cautiously through the shadows, their footsteps echoing in the empty space. It was a large room, dimly lit, with old crates and boxes scattered across the floor. Logan's senses were on high alert, every muscle tense, every nerve firing. And then, they saw him. Richard Matthews stood at the far end of the room, his back to them, his hands resting on a crate. He didn't turn around as they entered. "I was wondering when you would show up," he said, his voice cold and smooth. Logan's heart raced, and he stepped forward, his voice firm. "We're here for answers," Logan said. "You know what's going on. And you're going to tell us everything." Matthews finally turned to face them, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "You have no idea what you're getting into," he said softly. "But I'm afraid it's too late for answers." Logan's pulse quickened. Whatever Matthews was about to say, it wasn't going to be easy to hear. The truth was closer than ever, but so was the danger. And Logan knew they were about to step into the unknown. Richard Matthews' smile deepened as he stood across from Logan and Anna, the room thick with tension. The dim light barely touched his face, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly across the floor. Logan felt his heart race, a mixture of anger, fear, and determination pulsing through him. Matthews had the answers they had been searching for, the answers Anna needed, but his words were like daggers. "You really think you can just come in here and demand answers?" Matthews said, his voice calm, almost mocking. You're in over your head. Logan stepped forward, his fists clenched at his sides, his voice steady but full of resolve. I'm not asking anymore. I'm telling you. You will tell us everything. About Anna's mother. About why she's been hiding all these years. Matthew's eyes flickered with something amusement? Perhaps. But there was something deeper, something dangerous lurking beneath his calm exterior. You have no idea who you're dealing with, Matthews replied slowly, his gaze shifting between Logan and Anna. The people I work with, they don't care about your little problems. And Anna? She's just a pawn in a much bigger game. Logan's blood ran cold at Matthew's words. A pawn? Anna was no one's pawn. He had seen the strength in her, the resilience in her heart. He wasn't about to let Matthews manipulate her or anyone else ever again. Anna isn't a pawn. She's not a piece in your game. She's a person, and she deserves to know the truth, Logan said, his voice firm. Matthew's smile faltered, just for a moment, but long enough for Logan to see the cracks in the man's facade. The truth? Matthews repeated, a dark laugh escaping his lips. The truth is complicated. It's ugly. And once you hear it, there's no going back. Logan's pulse quickened. This was it. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the moment they would finally get the answers. He wasn't backing down. Tell us. Now, Logan demanded, his voice low but filled with authority. Matthews sighed, the sound dripping with annoyance. Fine, he said, his hands held out in mock surrender. You want the truth? Here it is. He paused for a moment, as if savoring the power he held over the situation, before continuing. Anna's mother wasn't just some innocent bystander in all of this. She was involved in something much bigger, something dangerous. Your mother, Anna, he said, looking directly at the young girl, was part of a covert operation. A group that deals in power, money, and influence. She made a deal with us, one that she thought would keep you safe, but it didn't. Anna's heart raced as Matthews spoke. Her mind spun with the weight of his words, each one cutting deeper into her fragile understanding of the past. She had always imagined her mother as a woman who had loved her deeply, someone who had been forced to leave for reasons beyond her control. But now, Matthews was painting a different picture, a picture of deceit, danger, and a mother who had been entangled in something far beyond Anna's comprehension. My mother, she was involved in all of this? Anna whispered, her voice barely audible. Matthews looked at her, his eyes dark and calculating. Your mother was more than just a victim, Anna. She made choices. She chose to be a part of this world, and when things went wrong, she vanished. But the people who are after you, they aren't looking for answers. They're looking for control. And they will stop at nothing to find you. Logan could see the shock in Anna's eyes, the confusion, the hurt. His heart ached for her. She had been through so much already, and now this. He had promised to protect her, to shield her from the truth until she was ready, but it seemed like the truth had a way of finding its own path, no matter how hard he tried to stop it. No, Logan said, his voice sharp and protective. You're wrong. Anna is not a part of your game. She's a child. She's innocent. Matthew shrugged, as if Logan's words meant nothing. Innocence doesn't matter in this world, Logan. Power does. And Anna? She's a part of it now. Whether you like it or not. Logan's mind was spinning, but he kept his composure. So, what now? He asked, his voice filled with cold determination. You tell us what you know. You tell us everything. Matthews regarded him for a long moment before his lips twisted into a dark grin. You want to know everything? Fine. But be careful what you wish for. The truth is that Anna's mother isn't gone. She's been alive this whole time, hiding in plain sight, and now she's more powerful than ever. Logan's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? He demanded. Matthews laughed softly, almost pitying. I mean, she's not the woman you thought she was, Logan. She's part of something bigger, something far more dangerous. And if you think you can just walk away from this, you're wrong. Logan's breath caught in his throat. Anna's mother was alive? But what did Matthews mean by more powerful than ever? The questions flooded his mind, each one more pressing than the last. But before he could ask more, Matthews held up his hand. But if you want to get to her, if you really want to find her, you'll have to play the game. And trust me, Logan, it's a game you're not prepared for. Logan's pulse was racing, and he could feel the weight of Matthews' words settle in his chest like a heavy stone. They had come so far, and now they were facing a whole new level of danger, one that was more complex and deadly than he could have imagined. We're not playing your game, Logan said firmly. We're taking Anna and getting out of here. Matthews shook his head slowly, his expression turning dark. You can try. But I'm afraid you've already lost. The room seemed to close in around them, and Logan knew they had reached a crossroads. The truth was within reach, but it was more dangerous than he had ever imagined. And as he stood there, staring down Matthews, he realized one thing: the battle for Anna's safety was only just beginning. The air in the room felt thick, heavy with unspoken words and the weight of impending danger. Logan stood face to face with Richard Matthews, each word between them like a sharp blade cutting through the tense silence. Matthews' smile had faded, and now his eyes were cold, calculating. His words had revealed something terrifying: Anna's mother was alive, hidden in the shadows, and more powerful than ever. Logan felt a rush of anger mixed with confusion. How could this be? Everything Anna had been told, everything she had hoped for, now seemed to be a lie. Anna, standing beside him, looked like a ghost, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock. She had spent so long searching for her mother, hoping against hope that she was out there, that someday they would be reunited. But the reality of what Matthews had just said, the truth about her mother's involvement in something far more dangerous, shattered everything she thought she knew. She's alive? Anna whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. Matthews looked at her with a chilling indifference. Yes, she's alive. And you, Anna, are a part of something much bigger than you realize. You were never meant to be protected from it. You were meant to be used. Logan's heart ached as he watched Anna's face crumble with the weight of Matthew's words. She had always believed that her mother was a victim, someone who had been forced to leave to keep her safe. But now, the story was different. Her mother had made choices, dark choices, and those choices had led to Anna being pulled into something far more dangerous than Logan could have imagined. Logan's mind raced, but he couldn't show weakness in front of Matthews. You're lying, Logan said, his voice low but filled with intensity. You're trying to manipulate her, to control her. This ends now. Matthew's eyes glinted with amusement, but there was something darker lurking beneath his calm demeanor. I don't need to manipulate anyone, he replied smoothly. The truth is enough to control you. Anna doesn't have a choice in this, Logan. Neither do you. Logan stepped closer, his jaw tightening. He had come this far to protect Anna, to find answers, and he wasn't about to back down now. What do you want from us? Logan asked, his voice steady, though his anger was barely contained. Matthews didn't answer immediately. Instead, he tilted his head, studying Logan and Anna as if they were pieces on a chessboard. What I want? Matthews repeated. I want the same thing I've always wanted: power. And Anna, she's the key. You can't keep running from the truth, Logan. She's tied to something bigger than your little life here. If you want to protect her, you'll have to make a choice: protect her from me, or from what's coming. Logan's mind was spinning. He had known the stakes were high, but this? This was a level of danger he hadn't anticipated. Matthews was part of something larger, something dangerous, and Anna was at the center of it all. But Logan refused to let fear dictate their future. We're not afraid of you, Logan said firmly. And we're not running anymore. We're going to find out what's really going on, and we're going to stop it. Matthew's smile returned, but it was twisted with menace. You think you can stop it? You think you can change anything? You're out of your depth, Logan. This is bigger than you, bigger than Anna. The game has already started, and you're just late to the party. Logan stood his ground, his resolve hardening. Then let's play the game. Matthew's expression faltered for a split second, but it was enough for Logan to see that the man was rattled. Matthews took a step back, his posture stiffening. You have no idea what you're up against, he said, his voice low and dangerous. This isn't some small-time operation. You're playing with fire, and you're both going to get burned. Logan knew Matthews wasn't bluffing. He had no idea what this organization was or how far it reached, but he knew they couldn't back down. Not now. Not with Anna so close to the truth. We'll take our chances, Logan said, his voice cold. I'm not leaving here without the answers, Matthews. And you're going to give them to me. Matthews' eyes darkened, and for a moment, the room felt as though the temperature had dropped. You won't have to wait long for those answers, he said, his tone thick with malice. But you should be careful what you wish for. Once you start digging, there's no going back. Once you learn the truth about Anna's mother, there's no coming back from that either. Logan felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. This wasn't just about Anna's past anymore. It was about everything. Her mother, Matthews, the people after them, all of it. Logan wasn't sure he was ready for the answers, but he knew that he had no choice. He had come this far, and he wasn't going to stop now. Matthew's eyes flickered to Anna one last time, as though weighing whether or not to say more. Anna's mother made choices, he said cryptically, and now those choices will come back to haunt you both. With that, Matthews turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the warehouse, leaving Logan and Anna standing there, stunned by the words that hung in the air. Logan turned to Anna, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. We'll get through this, he said softly, though his voice trembled with uncertainty. We'll find the answers, and we'll make sure you're safe. Anna didn't respond, but Logan could see the fear in her eyes, the doubt creeping in. She had already lost so much, and now the truth seemed even darker than she could have imagined. But Logan wouldn't let her face it alone. Together, they would face whatever came next, even if it meant stepping into a world far more dangerous than either of them could have imagined. Logan's breath caught in his chest as he turned to look at Anna, the weight of the situation sinking in. The conversation with Matthews had left them both shaken, and though Matthews had walked away with his cryptic words hanging in the air, Logan knew one thing for sure: they weren't going to stop. Matthews had said Anna's mother was alive and involved in something much darker than they had ever imagined. There were answers, but they came with risks that neither Logan nor Anna had fully prepared for. They couldn't go back now. They had come too far. Anna stood quietly beside him, her face pale, her hands trembling. Logan could see the fear in her eyes, the same fear he had seen before, but now it was mingled with something else: confusion. Anna had spent so long searching for the truth about her mother, only to find that the answers were more complicated, more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Anna, Logan said softly, his voice filled with compassion. I know this is a lot. But we have to stay strong. We can't let them control us. We will get the answers we need. Anna didn't look at him at first. She stared at the floor, her mind processing everything that had just happened, the weight of her mother's secrets crashing down on her like a tidal wave. She had always thought of her mother as someone lost, someone who had been taken from her. But now she was learning that her mother was part of something much darker, something beyond Anna's understanding. After what felt like an eternity, Anna lifted her eyes to meet Logan's. What now? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Logan swallowed hard, his mind still racing. We keep moving forward. He said. We find your mother. We find the truth, no matter how dangerous it is. Anna nodded slowly, her lips pressed together tightly. But how? Where do we even start? Logan took a deep breath. The warehouse they were in was far from empty. There had to be clues, things they could use to piece everything together. But Matthews had been right about one thing: they were in deep now, and they couldn't just walk away. We start by looking for answers, Logan said firmly. There's got to be something here, something that can help us find your mother. I'm not leaving until we know the full story. Anna stood silently, staring at him for a long moment, before she gave a reluctant nod. Okay, she said quietly. Let's do it. Logan gave her a small smile, though his heart felt heavy. He had never imagined this journey would lead them to a place like this. A place where the truth was dangerous, and the past threatened to consume everything in its path. As they walked deeper into the warehouse, Logan's senses were heightened. Every sound seemed amplified in the stillness, the creak of the floorboards beneath their feet, the distant hum of machinery, and the faint echo of their own footsteps. The shadows in the warehouse seemed to stretch out like a living entity, making it impossible to know what dangers lurked just out of sight. Stay close, Logan said softly, his hand instinctively reaching out to Anna's. He didn't want to show it, but his heart was racing. Matthews had made it clear that they were on their own now. There was no one they could trust, no one to guide them through the maze of lies and secrets. The only thing they had was each other. They walked further into the depths of the warehouse, each step taking them further into the unknown. The walls were lined with old crates and boxes, some marked with labels that were too faded to read. Logan's eyes scanned the room, searching for anything that could help them. And then, as they rounded a corner, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A stack of files, old and worn, piled haphazardly in a corner. Logan's instincts kicked in. This is it, he said, moving quickly toward the stack. He began to sort through the files, his hands shaking as he flipped through them, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. There were names, addresses, dates, and codes that meant nothing to him. But then one name caught his eye: Ruth. His heart skipped a beat. Ruth was the woman who had helped Anna's mother. Logan had thought she had disappeared, but here it was, a document with her name on it. As he looked closer, he saw that Ruth's name was linked to several other names, each one connected to an organization that Logan couldn't yet decipher. Anna, Logan said, his voice tight with urgency. Look at this. Ruth's name. She was involved in all of this. She knew something. She was helping Anna's mother. Anna stepped forward, her eyes wide with disbelief. What does it mean? What's all this? Logan shook his head. I don't know yet, but it's starting to come together. Ruth wasn't just a friend. She was part of something much bigger, something connected to your mother's disappearance. Anna looked at the papers in Logan's hands, her expression a mix of shock and confusion. This is all too much, she whispered. How could she have been part of this and never told me? Logan felt a pang of sympathy for Anna. Her world had just been turned upside down, and the truth was still slipping through their fingers, elusive and dangerous. We'll figure this out, Logan said, his voice firm but gentle. But we need to keep moving. We're not done yet. Anna nodded slowly, her eyes still glued to the files. Logan could see the conflict in her face, her desire to know the truth, mixed with the fear of what they might uncover next. They couldn't afford to stop now. Not when they were so close. Let's keep going, Logan said, taking Anna's hand again, leading her forward into the darkness. The journey ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear, they were getting closer to the answers. The truth was out there, hidden beneath layers of secrecy, and Logan wasn't going to stop until Anna had it. They walked further into the warehouse, knowing that the answers they sought were closer than ever, but so were the dangers that came with them. The warehouse was eerily quiet as Logan and Anna moved through the shadows, the air thick with uncertainty. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of their journey was pressing down on them. The files Logan had discovered earlier had given them a glimpse of the truth, but it was still so unclear. Who was behind all of this? Why had Anna's mother been involved in something so dangerous? What was this organization that Matthews had hinted at, and what did it want with Anna? Logan's mind was racing with questions, but as he looked at Anna beside him, her face drawn with confusion and fear, he knew they couldn't stop now. They had come too far to turn back. Anna, Logan said, his voice low and steady, I know this is a lot, but we have to keep going. We're getting closer to the answers. We'll find the truth, and we'll make sure you're safe. Anna looked up at him, her eyes tired but determined. She nodded slowly, but the uncertainty in her gaze was still there. What if it's too dangerous, Logan? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Logan could feel the weight of her words, the fear and hesitation that had taken root in her heart. She was scared, and who could blame her? Her entire world had just been turned upside down. I know it's scary, but we can't stop, Logan said, his voice firm with resolve. I won't let them control you, Anna. We're in this together, and together, we'll find your mother and end this. Anna didn't say anything more, but Logan could see the flicker of hope in her eyes, the spark of belief that he could protect her. That was all he needed. They had come too far to stop now. As they continued deeper into the warehouse, Logan's eyes scanned the room for anything that could help them piece together what was happening. The dim light barely illuminated the vast space, the shadows stretching across the walls like dark tendrils. They were close. He could feel it. Suddenly, Anna stopped in her tracks, her hand gripping Logan's arm tightly. He turned to her, his heart pounding in his chest. What is it? He asked, his voice a mixture of concern and curiosity. Anna pointed ahead, her voice shaking. There's someone there, she whispered. Logan's heart skipped a beat. He turned to look where she was pointing, his senses on high alert. Sure enough, there was a figure standing in the shadows at the far end of the room, barely visible in the dim light. Logan's mind raced, but he didn't hesitate. He pulled Anna behind him, stepping forward cautiously, his body tense. Who's there? Logan called out, his voice firm but not hostile. The figure didn't move, but there was a faint sound, a soft rustling in the darkness. Then, finally, the figure stepped forward into the light, revealing a familiar face. It was Ruth. Logan felt a rush of disbelief wash over him as he stared at the woman who had once been a part of Anna's life, someone Anna had trusted, someone who had been there for her mother. But Ruth's face was now cold, distant, and there was a look in her eyes that Logan couldn't quite read. Anna gasped, her eyes wide with shock. Ruth, she whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. Ruth didn't smile. She didn't move toward them. She just stood there, watching them with an inscrutable expression. Anna, she said, her voice soft but steady. I didn't think you'd make it this far. Logan took a step forward, his mind racing with questions. What are you doing here, Ruth? He demanded. What's going on? What do you know about all this? Ruth's eyes flickered briefly to Logan, then back to Anna. I know more than you think, she said quietly. I know what you're looking for, and I know what you're about to find. Anna took a hesitant step forward, her voice trembling. Where is my mom? She asked, her eyes searching Ruth's face. Ruth's expression softened for just a moment, but then she closed her eyes as if gathering her thoughts. When she spoke again, her voice was low, almost like she was whispering a secret. Your mother, she's been keeping secrets, Anna. And now, those secrets are catching up with us all. Logan felt a chill run through him at Ruth's words. What did she mean by that? What kind of secrets had Anna's mother been hiding, and how did Ruth fit into all of this? Tell us what happened, Ruth, Logan said, his voice commanding but also filled with a sense of urgency. Ruth looked at him for a long moment, her gaze hardening. I can't tell you everything, Logan, she said, her voice filled with regret. Not yet. But I can tell you that your search for Anna's mother is more dangerous than you realize. The people you're dealing with, they're not just some criminals. They're part of something much bigger, something that's been operating in the shadows for years. Logan felt his stomach tighten as the gravity of her words sank in. This wasn't just about Anna's mother anymore. This was about a network, an organization operating in the shadows, pulling the strings in ways they couldn't even comprehend. So what now? Logan asked, his voice filled with disbelief. How do we stop this? How do we find Anna's mother? Ruth sighed, a heavy, weary sound that seemed to carry the weight of years of secrets. I can't stop it. Not alone. And neither can you, she said. But I can help. I can lead you to her. But you need to be ready for the truth, Logan. It's a truth that will change everything. Logan looked over at Anna, who was still standing beside him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. He knew she needed this. She needed to know what had happened, what had kept her mother away for so long. But Logan also knew that once they uncovered the truth, there would be no going back. We're ready, Logan said firmly. We'll face whatever comes next. Ruth nodded, her face serious. Then follow me. She turned and started walking deeper into the warehouse, her movements slow but deliberate. Logan and Anna exchanged a look, and then followed her, knowing that whatever secrets were ahead, they would have to face them together. The truth was close now, closer than ever before. And Logan wasn't going to let anything or anyone stand in their way. The cold air in the warehouse grew heavier as Ruth led Logan and Anna deeper into the labyrinth of crates and darkened corners. Every step felt like it was taking them further into the unknown, into a place where the lines between friend and foe were blurred, and the truth seemed to slip further out of reach. Logan could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the secrets that hung between them like a thick fog. Anna walked silently beside him, her face pale, her eyes filled with the remnants of disbelief and fear. She had come here seeking answers about her mother, about the truth that had been hidden from her for so long, but now the truth seemed like something darker, more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Ruth, ahead of them, moved with purpose, her steps sure and steady as she guided them through the maze of abandoned crates and rusted machinery. Logan wanted to ask her more questions, to demand answers, but he knew better than to rush her. Ruth had made it clear that the journey they were on wasn't just about finding Anna's mother, it was about uncovering something much bigger, something more dangerous than they had anticipated. This way, Ruth said, her voice low and steady, as she turned into a narrow hallway at the back of the warehouse. Logan followed, his gaze flicking nervously over his shoulder, but there was no sign of anyone else. The warehouse seemed deserted, the silence almost deafening as they made their way through the maze. Ruth stopped in front of a large metal door at the end of the hall, its surface scratched and worn with age. She turned to face Logan and Anna, her expression hardening. What you're about to see will change everything, Ruth said quietly. You need to be ready for what's behind this door. Logan nodded, his heart racing in his chest. He had no idea what was behind the door, but he had to know. For Anna's sake. For the truth. Ruth placed her hand on the cold metal of the door and pushed it open, the hinges creaking loudly in the silence. Logan's breath caught in his throat as they stepped into the room. It was a small, dimly lit space, filled with rows of computers and old files scattered on desks. The walls were lined with monitors, some showing static, others flickering with incomplete images. It looked like a command center, an operation room of some sort. But it was abandoned, left to decay in the shadows. Ruth stepped inside and motioned for them to follow. This is where it all began, she said softly, her voice tinged with regret. This is where your mother's involvement started. Anna took a tentative step forward, her eyes scanning the room as she absorbed the sight before her. What is this place? She asked, her voice trembling. Ruth hesitated, her eyes locking with Anna's. This was part of a network, Ruth explained. A secret operation that spans several countries. Your mother, Anna, was involved in something dangerous, something that involved a lot of powerful people. And it's something that's still happening, something that can't be stopped easily. Logan could feel the chill in the air as Ruth's words sank in. He had suspected that there was more to Anna's mother than he had been told, but hearing it from Ruth made it real. Anna's mother had been part of something much larger than Logan had ever imagined. So my mother was involved in all of this? Anna whispered, her eyes wide with confusion. Ruth nodded slowly, her face grim. She was. And the organization she was a part of has its hands in a lot of different things. Power, politics, money, everything is connected. Your mother thought she could escape it, but they don't let people go. Not easily. Anna took a deep breath, her mind racing. But why didn't you tell me? She asked, her voice shaking. Why didn't you tell me the truth about her? Ruth's face softened, a flicker of guilt crossing her features. I couldn't, Anna. I wanted to protect you, keep you safe from this world. I thought it would be better for you to grow up away from all of it. But now, the truth is catching up with us all. Logan placed a hand on Anna's shoulder, offering what little comfort he could. He could see the weight of the revelation settling in on her, the heavy burden of knowing her mother had been a part of something so dark, so dangerous. But they couldn't stop now. They had to keep going. What now? Logan asked, his voice steady, though his mind was swirling with questions. How do we stop this? Ruth's eyes flickered to the monitors around them. You can't stop it, she said, her voice low. Not alone. Not without help. Logan clenched his fists, frustration bubbling up inside him. Then we find help, he said, his voice sharp. We do whatever it takes. Ruth's eyes softened, but there was a sadness in them. It's not that simple, she said quietly. The people who are after you, Anna, they're not going to stop until they get what they want. And they won't hesitate to use you to get it. Anna looked up at Ruth, her face full of determination despite the fear. What do we do, then? She asked. Ruth took a deep breath, looking at both of them. We need to go underground. We need to disappear for a while. Lay low, figure out how to take them down. But the longer you stay in their sights, the more dangerous it becomes. Logan felt a sinking feeling in his chest. Disappearing wasn't something he had ever wanted. He had hoped they could stay in the light, uncover the truth without having to run from it. But Ruth's words made it clear that wasn't an option anymore. So that's it? Logan asked, his voice strained. We just hide? Ruth's gaze softened. You hide, you regroup, and you fight back. You find the people who are behind this, and you bring them down. But you can't do it without help. You need to be careful, Logan. The stakes are higher than you think. Logan took a deep breath, his mind still racing. But he knew what he had to do. He had made a promise to Anna, and he wasn't going to break it. We'll do whatever it takes, Logan said, his voice filled with resolve. We'll keep you safe, Anna. We'll find your mother, and we'll stop this, no matter what it takes. Anna nodded, her face full of determination despite the fear that still lingered in her eyes. They had come so far, but the journey was far from over. The road ahead was dangerous, but they were in it together. They would fight for the truth, and they would fight for Anna's safety. Nothing would stop them now. The air in the warehouse felt oppressive, and the shadows seemed to close in around Logan and Anna as they stood there, absorbing the weight of Ruth's words. The decision to go underground, to disappear and regroup, had come with a heavy cost. Logan felt the responsibility pressing down on him, and Anna's silent presence beside him only made the weight heavier. Her mother had been involved in a world that was dangerous, a world that had now swallowed up Anna, and the danger wasn't over. So, what do we do now? Anna asked, her voice tinged with both fear and determination. Her eyes, wide with questions, were fixed on Ruth. Ruth glanced at them both before speaking, her voice somber. You need to get off the grid. You can't stay in one place for too long. They'll be watching, waiting for you to make a mistake. You have to be careful, and most importantly, you need to stay together. You won't be able to do this alone. Logan nodded, his jaw set with resolve. We've already come this far. We're not stopping now. Ruth studied him for a moment, her expression conflicted. It's not going to be easy, Logan. The people after you, after Anna, they're ruthless. They won't hesitate to use whatever means they can to get what they want. And they'll do it without mercy. Logan's stomach tightened, but he kept his focus on Ruth. We'll do whatever it takes to keep Anna safe. What do we need to do to get started? Ruth looked around the room, her eyes scanning the monitors and the old files scattered about. You need to contact the people who can help you. The ones who can provide shelter, guidance. I'll help you with that, but you can't stay here any longer. Logan felt a flicker of gratitude toward Ruth, but the truth was, he didn't know if he could trust anyone outside their small circle. Still, there was no other choice. We'll leave, Logan said firmly, but first, we need to find out what Matthews knows. We can't leave without learning everything we can. Ruth's face hardened at the mention of Matthew's name. You don't want to go down that path, Logan, she warned. Matthews is just one part of a much larger picture. The more you dig, the more you're going to find yourself entangled in things you can't escape from. Logan stared at her, the weight of her warning sinking in. But he couldn't turn back now. He had promised Anna that they would find her mother, that they would uncover the truth. "I'm not afraid of him," Logan said, his voice firm. "I'm not afraid of anyone who stands in our way." Anna glanced at Logan, her expression uncertain but determined. "We need to find my mom," she said quietly. "We need to know why she was involved in all of this. And we need to stop it." Ruth took a deep breath, her eyes softening for a moment as she looked at Anna. "I know you want answers, Anna. And I'll help you get them. But you need to understand, once you find out everything, there's no going back. The truth is going to change everything." Logan placed a hand on Anna's shoulder, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We're ready. We'll face whatever comes next, together." Ruth nodded, her face a mixture of sorrow and resignation. "Then we have to move fast. We can't stay here any longer." As they left the warehouse, the weight of their decision settled over them. The world outside seemed just as dark, the night air sharp against their skin. Logan knew they were heading into even more dangerous territory, but he was resolute. He had made a promise to Anna, and no matter what, he would see it through. "Where do we go now?" Anna asked as they got into the car. Logan glanced at her, his eyes filled with determination. "We head to a safe house. I'll make some calls, get us situated, and then we figure out our next move." Anna nodded, though she still looked distant, as if the weight of everything was too much for her to process. Logan could see the cracks in her resolve, but he also saw the spark of determination in her eyes. She had come so far, and she wasn't going to stop now. As the car sped down the road, Logan's thoughts turned to Matthews. He was part of this, no matter how much Ruth had warned him. Matthews had the answers, the connections that could lead them to the heart of the operation that had stolen Anna's mother from her. Logan couldn't afford to wait any longer. They had to find Matthews, confront him, and get the truth, no matter what the cost. Anna broke the silence, her voice soft but clear. "Do you think my mom's alive?" she asked, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. Logan glanced over at her, his expression softening. "I do. I believe she's out there, Anna. And we're going to find her." Anna's gaze remained distant, but Logan could see the flicker of hope in her eyes. He knew the journey ahead was going to be dangerous, but they couldn't stop now. They had to move forward, face whatever came next, and fight for the truth. No matter what. As they drove into the night, Logan's mind raced with plans and contingencies, but his heart was set on one thing: protecting Anna and finding the truth about her mother. He wouldn't stop until they had the answers, even if it meant going deeper into the darkness. They had no choice now. The truth was waiting for them, and nothing would stop them from finding it. The night had already fallen heavily over the city as Logan and Anna made their way to the safe house. Logan's mind was focused, his hands gripping the steering wheel as they moved through the empty streets. Every turn, every streetlight, felt like a reminder that the danger they were in was closing in. They couldn't afford to stay in one place for too long, not with the people who were after them, those who had been pulling the strings in the shadows for so long. As they drove, Anna sat quietly beside him, her gaze lost in thought, her hands tightly clutching the seatbelt across her lap. She had barely spoken since they left the warehouse. Logan had tried to offer reassurance, but the weight of the truth, of what they had uncovered, was still too fresh. Anna's mother had been involved in something much bigger than either of them could have imagined. She wasn't just a victim, a woman who had been forced to leave her daughter to protect her. No, her mother had made choices. She had been part of a dangerous world, a world that had now come for Anna. Logan glanced over at her, his heart heavy with the burden of what she was going through. "We'll get through this, Anna," Logan said softly, trying to break the silence. "We're close. We're going to find the answers. And I'm not going to let anything happen to you." Anna didn't respond at first, her gaze still fixed on the passing streets. But after a few moments, she turned her head to meet his eyes. "Do you really think we can stop this?" she asked, her voice small, but there was a hint of hope behind the question. Logan's heart clenched at the vulnerability in her voice. "Yes," he said firmly. "We can stop it. We'll take down whoever is behind this, and we'll find your mother." Anna looked down, her fingers absently tracing the edge of her seat. But how do we even begin to stop it? She whispered. How do we even know who we're up against? Logan kept his eyes on the road, but his mind was already turning over the possibilities. They had no idea who was truly behind this, but Matthews had been a key player. He had spoken of a larger network, one that stretched across countries and industries. They couldn't take this lightly. We start with Matthews, Logan said, his voice steady. We find out everything we can from him. He knows more than he's letting on. And we need to push him for answers. Anna nodded slowly, though doubt still lingered in her eyes. What if he doesn't tell us anything? She asked. Logan's jaw tightened, but he didn't look at her. Then we make him, he said simply. The words sounded harsh, but there was a resolve behind them. He wasn't going to let Anna face this danger alone. They had come too far, and they would go further if it meant finding the truth. The safe house was located on the outskirts of town, in a quiet neighborhood far from their usual haunts. As they pulled up to the small, nondescript house, Logan felt a strange sense of relief. They could lay low here for a while, plan their next steps, and figure out what to do with the information they had. This is it, Logan said, turning off the engine. We're going to stay here for a while. Keep a low profile. Anna didn't say anything, but her eyes moved over the house, taking in every detail. It wasn't much, just a modest house in a quiet area, but it was a safe place for now. Logan got out of the car and opened the door for Anna. As she stepped out, she looked up at the house, her expression uncertain. Do you think we'll be safe here? She asked, her voice full of doubt. Logan turned to her, offering a reassuring smile, even though he didn't have all the answers. For now, yes. But we have to stay vigilant. We can't let our guard down, not for a second. They moved inside, the door clicking shut behind them, and Logan quickly set to work. He checked the house, making sure all the windows and doors were secure. He moved quickly, methodically, but his mind kept drifting back to Matthews. He couldn't let Matthews slip through their fingers, not now. Not when they were so close to the truth. As Logan finished securing the house, he turned to Anna, who was standing in the small living room, staring at the floor. Anna, he said gently, you're not alone in this. We'll get through this. You have me, and we'll face whatever comes together. Anna looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mix of emotions. She was scared, but there was something else in her gaze, something that spoke of strength, of determination. I want to find my mom, Logan, she said quietly, her voice filled with both fear and hope. I need to know the truth. I need to know who she was and why she made the choices she did. Logan walked over to her, kneeling down so he was at eye level with her. I know, Anna, he said softly. And we will. But you have to stay strong. We have to keep moving forward. Anna nodded slowly, though her eyes still carried the weight of everything they had uncovered. But what if we don't get the answers we need? She asked. Logan gently placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice steady. We will, Anna. I promise you. We'll get the answers. And when we do, we'll make sure nothing like this ever happens again. Anna looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. But there was also a glimmer of trust, a belief that Logan would keep his promise. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of everything they had learned still heavy on their shoulders. But Logan knew that this was only the beginning. They would find Anna's mother, and they would uncover the truth, no matter what it took. He wasn't going to stop until they did. They weren't alone in this anymore, and nothing would stop them from getting the answers they needed. They were in this together, and together, they would face whatever danger lay ahead. The next morning, the safe house felt quieter than usual. Logan woke up early, his mind already racing through everything they had learned. The night before had been full of uncertainty, but it had also been a turning point. They had reached a place where there were no more secrets between them, no more lies to protect them from the truth. The harsh reality was that Anna's mother, the woman she had spent her entire life missing, had been part of something far darker than she had ever imagined. Logan stood at the window of the small living room, staring out at the street below, his mind lost in thought. He had promised Anna that they would find the answers, that they would uncover the truth. No matter what. But the truth was tangled in a web of danger and deception, and Logan knew that they were just beginning to scratch the surface. Anna had been through so much already, and now, with everything hanging in the balance, Logan was determined to protect her. His phone buzzed on the table, pulling him from his thoughts. It was the investigator. Logan answered it quickly, his pulse quickening as the voice on the other end spoke. "Logan," the investigator said, "we've found something." Logan's heart skipped a beat. "What did you find?" he asked urgently. "We've been tracking Matthews," the investigator continued. "He's not just a part of this, he's the key. We've discovered that Matthews is in direct contact with someone who's been connected to Anna's mother's disappearance." Logan's mind raced. "Who?" he asked, his voice tight with anticipation. The investigator hesitated for a moment, as if weighing his next words. "A woman named Veronica Ellis. She's tied to the same network Matthews is working with. And she's the one who's been controlling the operations that have kept Anna's mother hidden." Logan clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. The pieces were finally starting to fall into place, but this revelation only raised more questions. Veronica Ellis. The name didn't ring a bell, but Logan had no doubt she was part of something much larger. "Where can we find her?" Logan asked, his voice low. "We're still tracking her," the investigator replied. "But we've got an address. I'll send it to you." Logan hung up, his mind already working through the next steps. They had an address. They had a lead. He turned to look at Anna, who was sitting at the table, her face pale, her eyes still clouded with the weight of everything they had learned. "We've got a lead," Logan said, his voice firm. Anna looked up at him, her eyes wide with both fear and hope. "Who is it?" she asked quietly. "Her name is Veronica Ellis," Logan said, walking over to her. "She's connected to the people who have been hiding your mother." Anna's face tightened as she processed the information. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Logan paused for a moment, looking down at her. "We go to her. We find out what she knows, and we take this one step closer to finding your mother." Anna nodded slowly, though her uncertainty was still there. She had always dreamed of finding her mother, but now that the truth was unraveling, she wasn't sure what to expect. She had thought her mother was just lost, but now, it seemed like her mother had been part of something far more complicated and dangerous than she had ever imagined. Logan could see the conflict in Anna's eyes, the battle between hope and fear. "Anna, I know this is hard," Logan said softly, "but we can't stop now. We're getting closer to the answers. We have to keep moving forward." Anna took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "I know," she said quietly. "Let's go." They gathered their things quickly, knowing they didn't have much time before someone might catch wind of what they were doing. Logan grabbed his phone, double-checking the address the investigator had sent. The woman they were about to meet was tied to Anna's mother's disappearance, and Logan wasn't sure what they would find, but he knew they couldn't walk away now. He glanced at Anna as they walked out of the house, the weight of the journey ahead pressing down on them both. She had come so far, but the truth was still out of reach. Veronica Ellis was the next step, the key to unraveling the final piece of the puzzle. The drive was quiet, and Logan could feel the tension in the air between them. Anna sat beside him, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her eyes staring out the window as if trying to make sense of everything. Logan could see the storm of emotions brewing inside her, the hope that she might finally find her mother, the fear of what they might uncover, the uncertainty of everything. As they neared the address the investigator had given them, Logan's heart rate quickened. They were close. Too close. "We don't know what we're walking into," Logan said, his voice steady but filled with caution. "Stay close, and be ready for anything." Anna nodded, her expression determined, but there was still a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. They arrived at the location, a small, unassuming building in a quiet part of town. Logan parked the car and turned to Anna. "Are you ready for this?" he asked. Anna took a deep breath, her hands still clenched tightly in her lap. "I have to be," she said quietly. Logan opened the door and stepped out, moving with purpose but caution. They didn't know what kind of danger they might be walking into, but they were ready. Logan led Anna toward the building, his instincts on high alert. This was it. This was the moment they had been working toward. Everything was about to change. They knocked on the door, waiting, their breath coming in shallow gasps. The silence in the air was deafening. Finally, the door creaked open, and a woman stood in front of them, her eyes cold and calculating. She didn't smile. She didn't say a word. But Logan knew this was Veronica Ellis. And they were about to get the answers they had been searching for. The door to the small, unassuming building creaked open slowly, revealing a woman standing in the doorway. Veronica Ellis, her expression cold and unreadable, stood with her arms crossed, her eyes fixed on Logan and Anna as if evaluating them. The silence stretched between them, tense and thick, as Logan took a step forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "You must be Veronica Ellis," Logan said, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of uncertainty. "We need answers. About Anna's mother." Veronica's eyes flickered briefly to Anna, who stood beside Logan, her hands nervously clutching the strap of her bag. There was a brief pause, then Veronica stepped aside, allowing them entry without a word. The air inside was cool and quiet, the faint hum of a fluorescent light overhead the only sound as she led them into a small, dimly lit room. The walls were bare except for a few framed documents, and a desk sat in the corner with piles of papers scattered across it. "I didn't expect you to find me this quickly," Veronica said, her voice low and calm. "But it's good that you're here. You've come for the truth, haven't you?" Logan nodded, his gaze fixed on her, unwavering. "We need to know what happened. We need to know why Anna's mother was involved in all of this. Why was she a part of this network, and where is she now?" Veronica studied them both for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she walked over to the desk and picked up a file from the top of the pile, flipping it open with deliberate care. "You want the truth," she said, her tone almost too casual. "But the truth is complicated, messy, and dangerous. It's not something you can just walk away from once you know it." Anna stepped forward, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination. "I've been looking for my mother my whole life," she said softly. "I have to know what happened to her." Veronica's eyes softened, just for a moment, before she closed the file and looked at Anna. "Your mother made choices, Anna. Choices that changed everything. She didn't just disappear. She was taken, hidden away, and then she became part of something far bigger than any of us could have ever imagined." Logan's heart sank. "What do you mean? What happened to her?" Veronica sighed, setting the file down and looking at them both. "Your mother, Anna, was part of an operation, an organization that spans across governments, corporations, and dark networks that operate in the shadows. It wasn't just about her being in danger. It was about power. Control. And she was in the middle of it all." Logan's mind was racing, trying to connect the dots. "Why would she get involved in something like that?" he asked, his voice low, almost incredulous. Veronica's gaze hardened. "Because sometimes, you don't get to choose who you're dealing with. She got pulled into this world because of what she knew, because of what she could do. She thought she could protect you, Anna, by getting out. But they don't let people like her go. Not without consequences." Anna's face crumpled as she processed the words. "So she was part of something terrible," she whispered. Veronica nodded slowly. "Yes, Anna. And the truth is, you were always meant to be part of it. Your mother knew that. She tried to protect you, but in the end, you're tied to this, whether you like it or not." Logan stepped forward, his voice rising in anger. "This isn't about Anna being a part of it. It's about finding her mother and getting her out. We won't stop until we do." Veronica's eyes flashed with something akin to admiration. "You're determined," she said, almost in a tone of respect. "But it's not going to be that simple. There are forces at work that are far beyond anything you've ever encountered. If you want to find your mother, Anna, you're going to have to face these people. And they won't hesitate to use you against her." Logan clenched his fists, his jaw tight. "We'll fight back," he said, his voice fierce. We'll do whatever it takes to protect Anna and find her mother. Veronica's eyes softened for a moment, and she stepped closer, her tone shifting. I believe you, she said quietly. But the people you're up against, they are ruthless. And if you want to make it out of this alive, you need to be smarter than they are. You need to trust the right people. And you need to keep moving. She reached into a drawer in her desk and pulled out a small, unmarked envelope. This is the first step, she said, handing it to Logan. Inside, you'll find the information you need to find your mother. But be warned, this is just the beginning. If you follow this path, there's no turning back. Logan took the envelope, his fingers tight around it. He turned to Anna, who looked at him with a mixture of fear and hope. He knew what he had to do. He had made a promise, and he wasn't going to stop until they found Anna's mother and brought her home. We're in this together, he said softly to Anna, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside him. Anna nodded, her expression firming with resolve. Together, she whispered back. They both turned back to Veronica, who stood silently watching them. Thank you, Logan said, his voice filled with sincerity. For helping us. Veronica gave a small nod, her expression unreadable. Just remember, she said, her voice low, that some truths come at a cost. Be prepared for whatever comes next. With that, Logan and Anna turned and walked toward the door, the weight of everything they had learned heavy on their shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, but they had no choice but to keep moving forward. They had come this far, and they wouldn't stop until they had the answers. They wouldn't stop until they found Anna's mother. As the door closed behind them, they stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead, knowing that the truth they sought was finally within their reach. And nothing would stop them now.